And we're going live.
Here we go.
Woohoo. This is our Extroverted Gens episode 10. We're already 10
Ooh,
months into this. That is amazing.
I
All
know
right, it
it's,
looks
it's it's exciting, great stuff. All right, I see us
You see us? Are
on
we
Facebook.
live?
Yep.
Woohoo. Welcome everybody. I'm going to pull us up there too so I can see comments and such.
All right. I've got us shared on my social media too. So it's weird. It doesn't do the watch parties anymore.
Oh,
I just had to share it. So we're good.
okay. We're good. We're here. Welcome everybody. Whether you're joining us live today or watching the recording afterwards, welcome to our Extrovert's Guide to COVID-19 that Jen and I started now 10 months ago,
I
as
know.
we were entering this pandemic and not sure what it would bring. And as two folks that really love learning about ourselves and how we see the world and the lens that we see the world and how that affects our relationships, it's just been really exciting to get to share this journey, even in the midst of a global pandemic, and maybe especially in the midst of a global pandemic, to be able to use this time to really delve more deeply into understanding ourselves, and to understanding ourselves in relationship to each other, to society, to the cultures that surround us, to our world. It's just a joy to get to share this journey. I'm Jen Hicks, for those of you who don't know me, and with me is Jen Pinson.
Yay. Hi. Thanks for having me. And thanks for us doing this. I mean, I guess you can't have Jen and Jen without two Jens. so,
Each month
so
it's like, are we doing this? Yeah, we're
yeah.
doing this. Okay, 2 thumbs up, we're in.
Yes, it's great. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited about this topic too, because I feel like, this has been the story of the pandemic and both of us, like you said, that the more we know, the more we grow. And so I think both of us describe ourselves as like pretty consistent, constant learners,
Yeah.
and that we're always trying to, better ourselves and better the people around us. And the more we do better, the better, we are for our relationships and the people we're with. So yeah, so I'm super excited about this topic because I know for me, 2020, I feel like I know I learned a lot in 2020, but I definitely
Yeah.
didn't lean into the learning as much as I
Mm,
did 2018 and 2019. It was, reading lots of books and reading lots of literature and like really leaning into that. And 2020 was much harder to find that time at night to read.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
now, even though we're still in the global pandemic, like I feel like, things are beginning to look a little better. And I have also learned how to live this a little bit easier,
Yeah.
as probably a lot of us are coming into a year of being in this life.
Yeah, there was definitely a pivot point for me where I had to switch from just surviving to
Mm-hmm.
actually thriving and creating a life in the midst of this, and not, letting go. So there was that grief piece, and those of you who know me know that my motto has been grief, gratitude, grace. And so allowing the grief for the past and to know that it's never going to be the way that it used to be, and to also have that hope that we're actually creating a better future. And at this
Yeah,
point, I would not want to go back to how things were before this
agreed.
pandemic. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot of ourselves. We've learned a lot about our communities and our country and our societies. And I just think that being able to move forward with that knowledge, can empower us to hopefully create a better future that we are walking into, and walking into together. And I love Maya Angelou's quote of, do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know
Yeah.
better, do better. And I feel like that's really been the story of this last year for me, and for many of us. And that's why there's that grace piece, with the grief, gratitude, grace of, we did the best we knew how, giving ourselves grace. Jen and I were talking a little bit before about forgiving ourselves where we need to forgive ourselves, and not letting that stop us from learning and growing and doing better as we move forward.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I feel like at this point too, everyone talks about we're talking about this. When do we go back to normal? And I
Mm,
really,
yeah.
like you just said, I really hope that we don't go back to normal, whatever
Yeah.
normal was, that there are so many things. And it's like, even now, and this is one that, just a small example is,
Yep.
talking about, e-learning for snow days instead of having
Yep.
to tack on days to the end of the school year. And I know that there's, pros and cons inside of that. Like every kid loved a snow day. And so, yeah. And so, but, things change, and that's just a small example, but, the workplace, like being able to be
Mm.
able to work from home instead of having to take time off work because of the weather, or, when your kids are out of school, like being able to do that. So I'm hoping that we adapt some of those things in society, and we're not so rigid that, you like to talk about binary a lot and stuff, and being so, binary in the fact that you're sick, you stay home, and being so like, it's this way or this way, that there are things in the middle, that it doesn't have to be that way, that it doesn't have to be so rigid in terms of how we move forward. And so I really hope that we adapt some of that flexibility and that grace that we've given ourselves. And
Yep.
I feel like I can't tell you how many times in 2020 that like I've had a client or myself that I'm just like, oh, well, it's 2020. We're in a pandemic. Let's give each other extra grace. And then I'm just like, does it have to only be in a global pandemic that we give each other extra grace? It's like, I mean, can't we just forever give each other extra grace
Continue
and
to
lots
do
of
that.
grace?
Yes,
Right?
absolutely. And Jen, I love that you brought up what we've learned about being able to work and learn remotely and virtually. And that's something that some of our colleagues and friends in the disabled community have been advocating for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there are folks who need to be able to work from home
I need that
sometimes
extra
or
time.
always. And what we've
Mm-hmm.
learned is that we can actually do that. And so the businesses and the schools and places like that, that before we're like, can't do it. Now we're realizing actually that you can. And I want to honor the work that a lot of folks in the disabled community have done for years to try to get us to this
Yes.
point. It's not like this is a new thought. And hopefully, again, like you said, this is one of those areas where moving forward, y'all, now we know we can do this. And so, can we offer that flexibility? Can we offer that flexibility to students? Can we offer it to workers? Can we offer it to our fellow human beings, so that we can
Yeah.
create environments where folks can work in the space that is most productive and healthy for all of us, and healthy physically and healthy mentally and emotionally? To have some of that flexibility, I think, is just incredible. Oh, and I want to give a shout out to our friend Beth Engelking is joining us. She says, good morning to my two favorite Jens. Good morning,
Yay.
Beth. And good morning, Amelia, if you're listening too.
Yeah. Hi, Beth. Thank you so much for joining us, Beth.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like too, I've been seeing stuff about, even like doctor's notes and the privilege that even comes into being able to go see a doctor when you're sick from work.
Yeah.
And so like everything that you're just, talking about with the disability or with the disability community. And it's like, I feel like that we're learning so much from a privileged place and stuff that I hadn't even really thought about it from that perspective too. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. And I feel like there's so much in the medical sense and in income spectrums and stuff too about how much harder. And that's one of the things that I
Yeah.
feel like I learned the most in 2022, being a single mom and being in that. I also acknowledge my own privilege inside of that,
Hmm.
and my privilege especially like in my business ownership, not having to work 40 hours a week. And it was
Yeah.
like, I think I've talked about this some in this group and stuff too, that it's like, just especially on the income spectrums and stuff, how much harder the pandemic has been probably
Yeah.
to navigate for anybody, who is less privileged and stuff in terms of that.
Yep.
I can't imagine how difficult it is, especially to people that are losing their jobs
Yep.
and haven't ever experienced any of that. And so I just feel like there's been a lot that's come inside learning and through the pandemic, and it's opened my eyes up to so many different things and stuff too, that I feel like I've had blinders on for a while.
Yeah. And that's
Maybe,
one of the things. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just saying that's one of the things you and I were talking about earlier is just, both, and I think I can say this, both Jen and I tend to work as both business owners as well as music therapists and
Mm,
colleagues, from a very person centered, human to human perspective, that we really try and believe ourselves to be equal. When I'm working with clients, I'm not coming in as the expert, I'm coming in as a human being along with them, and they are human beings fully capable of, self-actualizing and making changes in their lives. And just my role is there to create the space. And I hold a lot of privilege and I hold a lot
Yep.
of power. And so like Jen and I were talking about, one of the things I've been learning and working with my language around is that idea of power, and being aware of the places where I hold power over
Mm-hmm.
folks, whether that's clients or colleagues or students, whether that's visible power or some of the invisible and hidden power that I can hold, and also being aware of the opportunities I have to share power with or to give power to others, and to try
Absolutely.
and be not only aware of my areas of privilege and power, but also really cognizant of how I am using that and how I'm using the platforms that we have. And thanks to Mike Viega, woohoo, Michael, who is joining us as well. We appreciate you as well, Michael. And I just have to give a shout out to Michael. If you are not aware of his arts-based research, Rising from the Ashes was life-changing for me to see.
Ooh.
Yeah. When we're
Yeah.
looking at the way that we approach our work with clients, when we look at the way that we're approaching research, arts-based research is just such a tremendous and important way that we as music therapists can approach those relationships with clients and honoring their music and honoring our own music that is inspired from that work, and the opportunity to share their experiences in different ways. So, Michael, thanks for joining us. Oh, wow. And we've got, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Naeem Raza Salim joining us from Pakistan at 9:30 p.m. So
Nice.
good evening. We're glad to have you all joining us
Yeah.
tonight. Jen and I love this platform because this is a space, we hold these conversations all the time, by the way. We don't record them all. We hold a lot of these conversations because we both really believe strongly that it's not only important for us to be learning about ourselves, but to be learning about ourselves within community and in
Mm-hmm.
relationship, and how important that is to understand not only ourselves here, but to understand ourselves here and with each other. And I know I'm a verbal processor, so I really appreciate these conversations to help to work through some of the challenges of living in this very complex and nuanced space.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like for me too, anytime that like and this is something I talk to with my therapist and stuff too, that anytime I like work on a layer, here comes another layer. Here comes another layer. And so it's like, I mean, and that's true for any of us when it comes to healing. And if you know anything about trauma and you know anything about shame, is a lot of times until you get to a place where you're ready for it, your body is protecting itself and pushing it away. And so, that's if when you do research on shame and trauma, it helps you understand
Yeah.
that a little bit better too. But yeah, so I feel like for me, I have to constantly be learning. I have to constantly
Mm.
be growing, or else it's just I'm going to be sitting in some of those feelings and not doing that work that needs to be done.
Oh, and
So,
Amelia's joining us too. Yay.
oh
Welcome,
yay.
Amelia.
I'm not sure I know who Amelia is.
Oh,
Beth's daughter.
Beth's daughter.
Duh.
Yes.
Sorry. I was thinking of music therapist Amelia. Sorry, Beth. I know your daughter. I've seen your daughter many times. Hi, Amelia.
Well, and I think, again, this is one of those gifts of being able to work and live and interact virtually, is getting to know each other on a more fully and wholly human level. Right.
Mhm.
And understanding the value and the importance of all aspects of our life and how that interweaves. And again, diving into that complexity. And Jen, I appreciate you talking about those layers. And I think that's one of the reasons for me it's really resonated, as Resma Menachem talks about how we need to build our endurance in the discomfort, because it's
Mm,
not as simple as, ooh, figured out this layer of myself, figured out this aspect of racism, figured out this aspect of white supremacy or
agreed.
ableism or whatever we're learning about, or music therapy for that matter, right? Figured out
Sure.
this layer. Now I know all things and got it. I'm good, right? Life is not that simple. And, I really appreciate Richard Rohr's writings on our development as human beings. And one of the things he talks about is that, it's later in that development that we can really embrace
Mhm.
non-dualism, and understanding that life is not that simple as right or wrong. It's
No,
not that
agreed.
simple as this is the right way to do this and this is the wrong way. And if I do this, I'm a good person. And if I do this, I'm a bad person. And it's not that simple. You know, um, am I a racist? Yeah, I hate having to say that. And right, I was raised in a society that values white supremacy, as well as capitalism and ableism and individualism, and just all sorts of those isms that we can add in there. And that has influenced some underlying core values that I'm having to work through.
Yeah.
That's not going to stop me, though, from doing the learning. That's not going to stop me from embracing cultural humility, which is something I've been striving for the last several years. It's not going to stop me from doing anti-racist work and
Mm-hmm.
learning more and doing better. And I'm going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be perfect at this work. And I'm going to keep learning. Jen and I were talking about how, the more you know, the more you grow, the power of our language and just how our language has evolved over the years. And we know that as music therapists, right? The language that we use with different clients that we work with has changed dramatically. The understanding of where person first language can be helpful versus where person first language can be harmful,
Mm-hmm.
understanding that complexity and nuance is incredibly important. For me, working in mental health, understanding that crazy needs to be out of my language,
Yep.
and working on that, because switching language like that is not easy. Letting go of you guys. I'm here in the Midwest, and you guys is a pretty common, supposedly non-gendered term, and it can feel gendered. And so I've been accessing my Missouri roots for the last few years, and learning to pull off pretty good all y'all, and even an occasional all y'all if you if you need that. So welcome all, welcome y'all. Being able to just really embrace some new language and to spend the time learning and growing to do that. Jen and I were talking before we started. I've been letting go of saying my clients. They're not
Mm-hmm.
mine. They're not my property. And so I want to thank Marisol Norris for bringing that one to light for me, and for all of my colleagues who've helped me to learn how to do better and have
Yeah.
given me the opportunity to make the mistakes, who've been brave enough to teach me and show me, and have given me the space and the time to grow and to learn and to show that I can do better. Oh, and so excited. And Samu Munga is joining us from South Africa. Welcome, and Samu. So
Yay.
grateful to have you joining us today, too. Oh, I've been talking for a while. Jen, what are your thoughts?
So some of the things that came to mind when you were talking is that, so I was talking to somebody about an individual that may or may not have a disability. And the first thing the person said to me was, well, what's wrong with them? And it was like, when talking about language, it was
Yeah.
like a dagger to me. Like I felt that it was it wasn't even about me. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about harmful language, like you and I one time had a conversation about insanely even. And, ever since the
Yeah.
conversation that we've had about insanely, I've tried to take that out of my vocabulary. And same with with insanely, and then also like you said with crazy, but also in that, what's wrong with them? It's like, well, no, this is just who
No.
they are. It's like we're
Yeah.
accepting them as their whole person, and we're accepting, we're accepting that. And, in trying to get out of that mindset of that, just because someone has a disability or just because someone's sick or something like that, getting out of that saying, well, what's wrong with them? There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with them.
No,
And yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it took me a long time. For those of you who don't know me, I have a history of a TIA and then further braining in my braining in my bleed. How's that? Bleeding in my brain that causes challenges with words sometimes, as well as I have a chunk of memories that are gone from when I had that TIA. And it took me a long time, and it's still something that I'm embracing, the complexity of understanding, um, owning the word disabled, and talking about
Mm,
having a invisible disability and what that means, and being able to name the accommodations that I make every day because of that, and that most people don't ever see.
sure.
Unless you're really close to me, you don't know all the accommodating that I'm doing. And it took me a long time. And I'm actually really grateful for a project that they did here. The Minnesota Stroke Association did a really cool project, unmasking brain injury, and invited folks with brain injuries to create masks. And that signifies their life, in whatever way they chose. And I had the opportunity to um, be a part of that with some of the clients that I was working with at the time.
That's
And it
great.
was such a powerful experience, because it was one of the first times that I named that I too had a brain injury. that had affected my life dramatically and was continuing to affect my life, and making that mask and having that opportunity to share my story and to name that, and to do that in the same space as the clients with whom I was working. So truly at much more
So
of an equal
powerful.
relationship. It was so powerful for me. And I'm still working through that. And I still know that the accommodations that I make every day are nothing compared with the accommodations that other folks have to make every day. And so also understanding when to speak and when to listen,
Mm-hmm.
and how to, again, allow for that complexity that each person's experience is going to be different,
Yeah.
and honoring that.
Agreed. Agreed. So some of the other things, going back to some of the things that you had said earlier.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that Michael chimed in and said same with my students, my
Yes,
class, mutual stakeholders, and everyone has agency. So
absolutely.
that's, I feel like even as business owners, like I was talking to
Yeah.
Jen about learning about my employees versus my team or our team, being mindful that they work for our company, not my company. Just really trying to be, and even I usually refer to myself as their coworker versus,
Mhm.
I don't really like being referred to as a boss or their boss or anything like that. I try to be very, very mindful of the language that I use in the workplace too. And so I really appreciate the mindset of, my clients versus, the clients, or, even, people that I work with,
Yeah.
or, even taking client out of it, and just being very cognizant about, how that terminology. And so I feel like that's something that I keep trying to do better with as well. And it doesn't take away the fact that I own my company. It doesn't take away the fact that those things, I just don't own my employees in any way, shape, or form. And I want them to have the autonomy to, be the therapist, the best therapist that they can be. That I try to be very, very mindful of the language and how I treat them,
Mhm.
that they don't feel that way too. And so it's not my team, it's our team. It's not my company, it's our company. It wouldn't be a company without them. It would just be me doing the work by myself. And so, I'm very mindful of that sort of thing. To
Mm.
Mike, ooh,
Ooh,
I
good
love that.
questions. And hello to Lorraine as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, TBIs are very challenging and difficult to explain. Absolutely. And Beth has a great question.
Ooh.
And we were just talking about
Oh.
this with children just a moment ago. And some of the language that we use around children. One of the conversations recently has been around whether or not to use kiddos, and if that
Mm-hmm.
actually takes away from their agency. On a recent episode of our podcast, if you want to check it out, in the Empty Mentor podcast, Alan Turry talks about this a little bit. Jen, what do you think about when it comes to, and I was just going to say to your kids,
Mm.
what do you think
Yeah.
about it when it comes to the children in your life?
I
What are
do
your
call them my kids. Yeah, I do. And I mean, and I love that you refer to my kids. My daughter is her own person, but at the same time, she's still my
Yeah.
daughter. Yeah, I mean, I feel that because I mean, it's like, the first thing that came to my mind is, well, I birthed them. Like I felt this like small sense of defensiveness. And then it's like,
Mhm.
but and that's that, and I'm going to own that, and I'm going to sit in that,
Yeah.
discomfort when I reflect on this a little bit more too. But you're absolutely right, Beth. Like, we don't own our children. Our children are their own. And I was thinking about this today too, when Guinevere, my youngest, she is all spunk. Like she is like the
I
biggest
wonder where she
personality.
gets that from.
Oh, she's so she's so me. Is like she's a hard kid to parent, but I want her to be a hard kid to parent. I
Yeah.
don't want to make her an easy kid to parent. Like, because if I don't want to take that
Yeah.
light away from her. I don't want to take that thunder and that sass that she brings to the table. I don't want to take any of that from her. And so if she
Yeah.
wants to wear a beaver hood to school, then wear a beaver hood to school. I don't care. Like they might, it's just daycare, so they don't care. But
Oh,
it's just her being like, when she wants to dress herself, she doesn't match ever, and she wants to wear the loudest clothes all the time. And and she just, and even then, even past that, like behavioral things sometimes too, she just always is pushing the boundaries, and she's
yeah.
always pushing the limits. And I don't want to take that from her because I want her to continue doing that.
Yeah.
And so I love this, my children, and I think I'm going to reflect on that because when we talk about my employees, my clients, and things like that, obviously our kids are in a closer relationship. I refer to my parents as my parents, and I'm sure my kids refer to me as their mom. And so I think it's different when we're in that closer relationship than in that dynamic with our clients and stuff. And so I'm not saying that I think it's okay. I'm not saying that I don't think it's okay. I'm just not sure that,
Yeah.
but it's interesting and I want to continue exploring it.
It comes back to what we were saying about the complexity, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a sense also of belonging that is important,
Mm-hmm.
right? When we say my or our, there's a sense of belonging too. And so I think there's also these distinctions and complexity between ownership and belonging. And one of the things that Richard Rohr talks about with belonging is that it's not about saying we're all alike, right?
Yeah.
It's not believing all the same things. It's about creating space where we can all grow and we can all flourish and we're all welcomed as we are. And Michael, I really appreciate what you said here. Letting go and seeing children grown in personhood is beautiful but painful too as a parent.
I can see that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll just say, as a hard to raise kid, because my mom listens to these later, so I'm sure she'll be listening, and she'll probably nod along. As a hard to raise kid, I am so grateful because looking back, I can see the times that my parents gave me the opportunities to step into the fullness of who I could become.
Mm.
And they gave me the
Ugh.
space to make mistakes. And they gave me the space to learn the hard way sometimes because I needed to. And they also always made me feel loved and accepted and welcomed as I was. And they still do that. I'll tell you, we have three of us girls, three sisters, and we're all very different. And one of the things I really appreciate is that space to be who we are and to be loved for who we are. And when I think of some of the lessons, going back to the more we know, the more we grow of this past year, the importance of community.
Mm.
You know, we
Yes.
we thrive in relationship and in community and in belonging, and that is
Mm-hmm.
so important. A couple shout outs here. Natasha Thomas is one of the great voices in our music therapy community who has
Mm-hmm.
taught me a lot about the importance of community care. She started the mutual aid forum at the beginning of the pandemic that I was able to both contribute to and benefit from. So to be a part of on both sides of that, and as someone who speaks a lot on self care cannot happen alone. It
Mm-mm.
happens within community. It happens within a supported environment. And, I think it's just so important to acknowledge that the work of Dr. Vivek Murthy, who's done a lot of the research on loneliness and just published a book on that, our former Surgeon General, we need each other. It
Yeah.
is it
It's
is
true.
a survival need to belong. And when we're feeling lonely, that's similar to when we feel hunger or thirst. Our body is telling us that we need something. And a little bit of it isn't bad, right? And long-term loneliness is actually more detrimental to us than things like smoking in a sedentary lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think it comes back to too being able to balance and I'm going to just let go of that word balance, Jen, because you've taught me to
I
find
hate that
harmony.
word.
And
Find harmony.
I know to find harmony and to not balance, because balance is always shaky, but to find harmony in our relationships and in a sense of belonging, in a sense of community, and allowing folks to grow and being who they are. And Samu says, I'm always intrigued by language. The English language has evolved to emphasize the subject object relationship, nouns. Language like Montu's emphasize relationships as verbs. Oh,
Mm.
I just got chills in Samu.
I
That's
love that.
wow. I'm going to be, there's always something from our conversations, Jen, that I'll just continue to live in and, and reverberate in. And yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Agreed. And Beth says, I wonder if it's different because of the nature of the relationship. As much as we love the parents, clients, employees with whom we work, it's a therapeutic business relationship. Money changes hands. Family is very different
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Agreed.
Yeah.
Um, so for those of you that haven't heard of the harmony, my mindset of harmony is that for balance, I've always thought of the teeter totter, and it's like always like really shaky. And so when I was trying to balance working and being at home, it felt always too much. And so like I feel like especially being a single mom too, and having my kids primarily on my own, it was something that was really hard for me to kind of figure out. And so I started thinking about harmony as the word that came to mind for me. And as musicians, we know you can't create harmony alone. You might be able to with your own voice by dubbing it, but you have to use something else to create harmony. And so when I started thinking of finding harmony within my own life, it started making me realize that we're not meant to do it alone. And balance always felt like I had to figure it out by myself. I had to do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
And harmony was reaching into my community and reaching into where I could have that support to find the harmony in my life. And so it was leaning into that I couldn't do it alone, that I had to have other people. as a musician, I know you can't do it alone. And so, so that's kind of where harmony started coming from. And so now I shy away from the word balance because it feels too much for me. And so I come into that, like I strive for harmony within my life. And that means that I look for my community for resources. It means that I look inward for the things that can help me find that that community, and that harmony is between myself, because I'm important as well. And we all are in our own beings, and we can't care for others if we're not caring for ourselves. So that harmony is finding harmony between myself, my parents, and my career, because my career is equally, well, it's not equally important, but my career is very important to me. And within these three things, it's important for me to have harmony in all of them.
Yeah, I love that, Jen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also love that that creates the space for dissonance. One of my
Absolutely.
favorite parts of harmony in music is those moments of dissonance and tension, and then the release or the surprises, right? I don't know about y'all, but life is full of surprises.
Yes.
And I could never have pictured that this is where I would be right now. And I'm so grateful this is where I am. And so I think also just allowing for the moments of dissonance in our lives.
To sit in that dissonance, because
Yeah.
sometimes dissonance can be really beautiful.
Oh,
It just might not,
absolutely.
and we can feel it. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I've really loved about talking about harmony with you, is just all of the layers that comes out when you and I talk about it too, is that dissonance, that consonance, that resolving, that, everything that comes along with music.
Yeah. And I think too, that idea of, in harmony, there's often one voice or one instrument that needs to come out more strongly. And that can change in a piece of music.
Yes.
And so thinking about the times in our lives that maybe work needs to be that voice.
Yeah.
Versus the times when, family needs to be the voice, or my own care right now, or my own health needs to be that voice that comes out more right now, and allowing for that to change. So I think that's the other piece with balance, is they're not going to be equal. There's going to be different times when different parts of us need to come out more, and allowing for those voices, and allowing for, again, that complexity of what makes music truly beautiful. Yeah.
In the book Essentialism, he talks about that the more priorities we have, the less we prioritize our priority. That the word priority should mean one thing. And, and so that priority for me shifts sometimes. It's not always my kids. It is sometimes my business, because the reality is I have to have income to take care of my kids and blah, blah, blah. But the more things that we prioritize, the less meaningful the priority is. And it, like, that for me was game changer too, because it's like, if you're trying to put everything into this bucket, then that bucket begins to sink. Like, you can't put too much in that bucket of priorities, or else, and so that was like one of the things that like made the most sense to me too. And then the fact that priority is not meant to be plural.
I love it. Thank you,
right?
Jen. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Any last thoughts as we finish up today? Oh, hey, cousin. My cousin David is also listening.
Hi, David.
Welcome, David. It's great to see you here too. It's so fun to have you all joining us today. And whether you're joining us live, thank you for those comments. We've tried to read them aloud so they can be part of our recording as well, or whether you're catching us on our YouTube playlist afterwards. Thank you for being a part of these conversations with us. Jen and I are always learning. And so we would encourage you to share your thoughts with us. Feel free to continue to comment. Share your ideas for topics you might want us to discuss when we do this. We're always open and looking for opportunities to continue to grow. Yes. And Samu says that making of harmony is communitarian. It privileges co-creation. Yes, love that. And Michael, we're glad you could finally join us.
Yeah, thank you for joining.
We do want to end by just sharing some ways that you can continue to stay connected with Jen and I. Jen, do you want to start?
Yeah, so be looking for a relaunch of Career Driven Mom. Our podcast will be coming out hopefully in March. And so, and you're welcome to connect with me over at Career Driven Mom, which is where I talk about harmony a lot and finding this harmony within our career, parenting, and within ourselves. And so if you want to dive deeper, I've got a group that you're welcome to join. And then also I've got some Facebook pages, and you're welcome to connect with me anyway. I will accept most Facebook requests, and you're welcome to follow my business and stuff like that as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we'll be excited to hear more about that launch and relaunch of Career Driven Mom coming up. I've added in the chat the link for the Facebook group for that. And then I've also added the links for my MT Mentor group, which is a private membership group that I have. I provide monthly content packets. We're actually delving into humanism, person centered music therapy this month and really exploring some of the complexity of that and understanding some of the ways. Some of the challenges of that, along with the gifts of that theoretical model. And so that's what we're exploring in our MT Mentor group. We also have past content that's available on topics like self-care, burnout, music therapy, bias, privilege, appropriation, as well as really diving into core values, vision, and mission, which is one of my favorite topics and actually something I'm going to be presenting on at the GLR Midwest Region Conference.
Yeah.
I think our next Extroverted Gents will probably be right around conference
The
time.
week of conference.
It might be actually the Thursday of conference. Oh,
yeah, we'll have to change it.
I might be in a
I'm in
CMT.
Me too. My CMT during that time. I just thought about that. So yeah.
We'll keep you posted on what we'll do next month because Jen and I are going to be doing some CMTEs at the GLR Midwest Region Conference. Jen on some business finances, which is super exciting. I'll be presenting CMTEs on core values, vision, and mission, as well as on self-care. And so those are some of the topics we address in MT Mentor. And then I also put the links for the podcast that I've had the joy of facilitating with different mentors in the field of music therapy. And I am a big believer that we are all mentors in different areas. And it's been my privilege to get to interview different music therapists at different stages of their journeys who are mentors in different topics and different areas. My most recent one was with Alan Turry and Lindsay Markworth about music-centered music therapy. So be sure to check that out. I have another one recorded, and we're recording another one tomorrow with a certain guest who will go unnamed at this time, but you might be able to guess. And we'll be excited for those couple of episodes coming out here in the near future. Thank you all so much for joining us. Oh, okay. Michael's been coloring his 2-year-old's hair while listening. Harmony. I love that. That's a great example of harmony.
I love it. I love it.
Michael. Yay. And Samu says, thank you both. I find it refreshing to listen to two friends who clearly like each other. Yes. And one of the funny things just behind the scenes, both Jen and I value words of affirmation as one of our love languages. And so after, when I push end here, chances are there's going to be some messaging going back and forth, affirming each other, which is something we do too. And we'd encourage you to do, to continue to affirm each other in your growth. And oh, thank you. Beth is on it. Beth just put the link for the CMT, the Great Lakes Region, Midwest Region Conference. And thank you to Beth for all of your service for making that possible. You've been working a lot. And to all the rest of you who are working right now on all those regional conferences, y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for your service. And just thank you for the way that you continue to help to encourage the brave spaces where we can grow and learn together. I think those are so important. We're not going to be perfect on this journey, and it's so important that we have folks there to encourage us as we continue to grow and learn together. So thank you for being part of that journey with us today, for encouraging and sharing your thoughts, your feelings, your questions with us. We look forward to continue to exploring some more of those in the future. Jen, thank you as always. It is just a joy spending this time with you. And I look forward to continuing our conversations both live with all y'all and also just with the two of us too.
Agreed. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys in March sometime.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.